It starts like a fairy tale. They look at you like you're the only person in the room. Their charm is magnetic, their words poetic. They sweep you off your feet and paint your world with the colors you've always dreamed of. You find yourself opening up, smiling more, trusting faster than usual. There's something different about them. Something intense, electrifying, maybe even fated. But what you don't realize is this. Narcissists don't fall in love with you. They fall in love with your admiration. And the person you think you're falling for? It's a mask. The first clue is often hidden in the speed. The relationship escalates rapidly. They talk about soulmates within weeks, maybe days. "I've never felt this way before," they say. "You're everything I've been looking for." And you believe it, because it feels real. They flood you with affection, attention, and promises. You're intoxicated. But love bombing isn't love. It's manipulation wrapped in flowers and fire. You start to notice that everything revolves around them. Their stories dominate every conversation. Their needs always take precedence. When you try to talk about yourself, your struggles, your wins, your fears, they somehow redirect the spotlight. It's subtle at first. They listen, but they don't really hear. They nod, but they don't respond with the depth you offer them. Eventually, you start to shrink, to stop sharing, because your voice feels like background noise. The third sign emerges in how they handle praise. They crave it. Not in a normal way. Not like someone who simply appreciates compliments. They feed on it. They subtly fish for admiration, steer conversations to showcase themselves, and become irritable if someone else is praised more. Your achievements. They're either ignored, belittled, or repurposed to highlight their own greatness. "You did great, but I remember when I..." That sentence becomes a pattern. Then comes the invalidation. At first, you think they're just being honest. "I'm just telling it like it is," they say. But the truth is, they undermine your feelings. They mock your sensitivity. They accuse you of overreacting. You begin to second-guess your emotions. When you're hurt, you're told you're too emotional. When you're confused, you're told you're imagining things. This isn't honesty, it's emotional erosion. One of the hardest signs to see is the lack of genuine empathy. They can be charming, they can seem caring, but it's surface level, transactional. When you're truly struggling, when you need emotional support, they grow cold or impatient. They may offer solutions, but not solace. They may pretend to care in front of others, but disappear when the crowd is gone. You learn to cry quietly because tears make them uncomfortable. You learn not to bleed in front of them because they'll step around you, not toward you. Control becomes the next theme. Not in the way movies show it, not always yelling or locking doors. Sometimes it's in the way they make you doubt your judgment. Sometimes it's in subtle criticisms disguised as advice. "I just think you'd look better in something else." "You really shouldn't talk to that friend anymore." They frame control as concern, and you comply because you don't want to lose them. They never take responsibility. Every fight becomes your fault. If they explode, it's because you provoked them. If they lie, it's because you weren't understanding enough. If they cheat, it's because you were distant. Narcissists are experts at shifting blame. Apologies, when they come, are shallow and usually followed by guilt trips or demands. "I said, I'm sorry. What more do you want?" You stop asking for accountability because it only leads to more pain. The silent treatment becomes a weapon. You may go hours, days, or even weeks being ignored for reasons you don't fully understand. You replay conversations, scan your actions, desperate to pinpoint the trigger. But the silence isn't about conflict resolution. It's about control, punishment, and reminding you that your emotional stability depends on their mood. It works. You start to walk on eggshells, adjusting your tone, filtering your words. Peace becomes your goal, not connection. Then there's the distortion of reality, gaslighting. You clearly remember what was said, how it made you feel, but when you bring it up, they deny, minimize, or twist it. "I never said that." You're remembering it wrong. You're crazy. Over time, you begin to mistrust your own mind. You start asking them to help you remember events. You surrender your truth for the comfort of their version of it. And finally, there's the cycle. The highs are dizzying. When they're loving, it feels like heaven. You convince yourself that this version of them is the real one, that the cruel moments are just flukes. But the cycle is predictable. Idealize, devalue, discard, repeat. You're on an emotional roller coaster, and every drop is more painful than the last. But you stay because you remember the highs. You stay because you think you can bring that version of them back. But that version was a lure, not a person. You didn't fall in love with a narcissist. You fell in love with the character they played. And you stayed because they convinced you that no one else would love you like they do. That you're too broken, too dramatic, too much. But that's not love. That's programming. The hardest part about being with a narcissist is that they make you question your worth, your memory, your reality. They isolate you from your intuition, from your people, from yourself. And when you finally gather the courage to leave, they often become their most charming again, because they sense the loss of control. They'll promise change. They'll say all the right things. But the pattern remains. Because narcissism isn't a phase. It's a structure. And unless they seek deep, consistent, painful self-work, it doesn't change. When you finally break away, the world feels both quieter and scarier. You begin to feel things you had numbed: grief, anger, betrayal. You mourn the version of you that tolerated the mistreatment. You feel embarrassed, maybe ashamed. But there is no shame in surviving. You loved. You tried. You believed. Those are not weaknesses. They are signs of your capacity for depth and loyalty. And as you begin to rebuild, you start to hear your own voice again. You remember how it feels to laugh without fear, to speak without calculating every word. You rediscover who you were before you learned to dim yourself to fit their spotlight. Eventually, you meet someone new. Or maybe not. But either way, your standards rise. You spot red flags sooner. You learn to set boundaries without guilt. You realize that you deserve to be heard, to be held, to be honored, not only when you're useful, but when you're vulnerable. You begin to understand that real love is not loud or showy. It's safe, consistent, and kind. You'll look back one day and see how far you've come. You'll remember the nights you cried quietly in your pillow and now smile at how you sleep peacefully again. You'll think of the days you begged someone to love you better and realize you no longer beg. You choose. You protect. You heal. And most of all, you no longer accept intensity as a substitute for intimacy. Because you know now, love isn't about being needed. It's about being respected.